As I'm sure you're aware, the distortion of history is nothing new. It's arguably as old as history itself. In the Middle Ages, people would depict biblical and historical events as if they happened at the time. Look at these Romans who were extra well prepared, bringing full suits of plate to the siege of Jerusalem. Oh, and did you know they had cannons in the year 70? Someone really pushed hard to speedrun the tech tree. People from events hundreds or thousands of years ago were portrayed with contemporary clothing and arms and armor. For most of history, it seems that people emphasized a good story over truthfulness. In more recent times, we've seen fake manipulated pictures of giant skeletons and mermaids and who knows what else. But it's gotten worse, and it keeps getting worse. It always irks me when I see someone say, I asked ChatGPT and it said, it doesn't matter what ChatGPT says. It's a language model, it's not a research tool. It hallucinates sources, forges fake references that don't exist. It makes shit up. You're literally better off going to Wikipedia, which is actually pretty good nowadays. Now there's social media accounts everywhere spreading AI slop like this, dressed up as historical education. Now if you have even the most cursory surface level knowledge of the Viking period, it's immediately obvious that this is nonsense. I mean, this seems to be ripping off the Vikings TV show, with its historical accuracy only barely surpassing the Lost Vikings. The AI whipped up a fictional poser dude wearing an outfit that would make a beginner LARPer think, nah, I want something that makes at least a little bit of sense. It's about as historically accurate as the armor in the first Diablo game. And I have to wonder, what's the point? If you look at the crossbow tag on manuscript miniatures, you find plenty of original artwork showing knights with crossbows. Or you can look at Wikimedia Commons and search there. There's so much royalty-free, Creative Commons, public domain material showing this kind of stuff. You don't need to generate such an abomination. You might say, well, that's obviously AI generated. It has a telltale signs of wonkiness and everything. People will recognize that. Well, not everyone. And it's only going to get worse because it's already gotten better. It can apparently render the right number of fingers now and stuff like that. As it gets better, eventually, it's going to be really difficult to distinguish AI-generated content from real content. And what do you do then? And of course, the problem is, which is also why I sometimes rant about laughably inaccurate stuff in historical fiction that presents itself as historical, even refers to specific named personalities in history and all of that, but then just goes full fantasy. Yes, people know that it's just a movie, but it still sticks with them on some level. They might, if they try to remember something they've seen about history, in the back of their mind, they might remember some image they saw in a movie, or worse, generative AI, that they don't remember where it was from. They just remember, oh yeah, a picture of a knight, blah, 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 whatever. And then that might inform them on some level, maybe even subconsciously or whatever. We know that this kind of stuff influences the general knowledge of the overall population. The same way as the Victorians propagating all kinds of ridiculous myths like knights wearing such heavy armor that they had to be hoisted onto the saddle by a crane, although ironically that was satire. But there's always someone who doesn't get the joke and takes it literally, isn't there? Something I have never seen in the comments. Not at all. This is the kind of stuff that other people later parrot and will run with uncritically. And that happens here a lot. We've seen AI-generated historical photos that are done in that style that were just generated for the heck of it, just for comedic purposes or whatever, or maybe for malicious reasons to try to mislead people actively. But even if not, some other people see that and run with it like, well, have you seen this giant horse? Crazy, right? That's not real. Stop spreading that. One of the most ridiculous examples I saw just recently is this. Cannon shoulder-fired rocket launcher. What's the difference? Same thing, basically, right? Just imagine doing this while it goes off. The kinds of injuries that would cause. So this is about Molly Pitcher, whom the Post correctly identifies as Mary Ludwig Hays. Probably correctly, there were many women who joined as camp followers, taking care of a number of tasks, providing the men with water, hence Pitcher. Apparently, soldiers just called them Molly because they couldn't remember the name of every one of the women, and Molly was a very common nickname for Mary. That's what Mary Ludwig Hays did as well. She followed her husband and soldier John, particularly in the Battle of Monmouth in 1778. She ran around providing water to soldiers. It was a hot day. There were plenty of casualties due to heat exhaustion and dehydration. John was manning a cannon when he got hit and went down, so Mary stepped up and started womaning the cannon. She started reloading and firing the cannon without formal training, just having watched how the men did it before. The one thing the Post could have mentioned is at one point a cannonball went straight between her legs, tore her skirt, but without actually injuring her. So this is one of those cases where history is fun. So many interesting events and personalities, but history is interesting by itself. You don't need to distort it, you don't need to make it TikTok ready, and you don't need to generate such an absurd mockery of what happened. Or if you want something more visually interesting, at least hire a real artist to do it properly. And then there's this. I don't even know where to start here. The Dacian presumably looks like a Sumerian barbarian. He's holding onto an integrated shield that the Roman soldier has as part of his armor. The falx is a fantasy Sika, if even that. Apparently whoever entered the prompt for this one looked at the result like, yep, good enough, we can use this. And then to top it all off, it propagates the myth that the falx is some kind of super weapon that can slice clean through entire shields and helmets and... Look, there is some discussion around whether the Romans reinforced their helmets as a result of encountering Dacians with their weapons, be it falx or Sika. To just authoritatively state it without any caveats, I don't particularly like that. And this, by the way, according to AI, is a Dacian warrior with a falx. Makes me wonder if there's liquid painkiller in eyedropper format available. Anyway, so as someone who has played a small part in debunking myths and trying to educate people about history, among other things, this kind of trend really bothers me. And it makes me worried about the generation that's growing up with this crap right now. I mean, that's got to do something to your critical thinking ability. I mean, really, we need more critical thinking skills than ever at this point when there's so much misinformation and garbage out there, and it becomes increasingly more difficult to separate fact from fiction. And this has always been done in some form, but the problem is now it's an industrialized process. Now the internet is just being flooded with this kind of stuff at a much greater rate than any individual person or group of people could ever do that. The AI is just cranking it out nonstop and can just flood everything to the point where eventually it seems like we will have a lot more nonsense and garbled, twisted versions of what happened than actual accurate representations and accounts. I really miss that optimistic outlook we still had in the 80s and 90s. Sure, there was plenty of grim, dark, gritty, dystopian sci-fi, but when it came to the expectation for real life, we were looking more toward an idea of a utopian future. I don't know about that. Anyway, just had to rant about this. Let me know what you think. Maybe you have some particularly egregious examples of this kind of stuff. Thanks for watching, and stay informed as much as you can. Stay skeptical. Use critical thinking.